I have to think about it. Okay. Welcome to Global Kinship, Exploring the Emerging Noosphere. I am Gail Ransom, one of the hosts for this webinar. I am joined by Bob Eisenberger and Penny Anderson, whom you will meet soon. The word nous is from the Greek word gnosis, which means knowing. It's the kind of knowing that goes beyond knowledge and necessary gathering of information that we all do. On top of that, gnosis is created out of our intrinsic values and sensibilities, our humanity, our perceived place in our communities, and its place in the greater whole. It is a bit like when we say to a friend, I thought there was something else that she wanted to say, something we feel, but it isn't something exact, but you know it because something went on between you, right? Or no worries, I know him well, he will know what to do. Again, recognizing values in somebody else that you maybe never articulated, but it's that kind of knowing that gnosis and noosphere is talking about. We use that consciousness all the time without being aware. Now we are evolving into that awareness. Today's presentation on the Parliament of the World's Religions offers one example of humans becoming aware of their deep intrinsic connections with each other and Earth, from which they are creating larger, more diverse, value-based communities, creating a spiritual web within the noosphere. Bob, I invite you to instruct us on our technological life here.
All right. There we go. Many of you have been with us many times before, but bear with me, please, as I say this for those who may be newcomers. We ask that you keep yourself muted because otherwise extraneous sounds can be quite distracting to whatever else is being said or done. And the other big thing is when we open for questions, if you would find the Zoom toolbar and look for the button called Reactions. When you click that, select the Raise Hand feature, and that'll put you up in the upper left corner of the screen, and we can all see who's in line and get everybody in sequence. And I think that's all I need to say on that. I will turn us over now to Penny.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be together again. And my father was a salesman, and I have to be very careful because the child in me that grew up with a salesman has a salesman live inside me. And the reason I'm prefacing this way is that in 2015, I had the great fortune to follow my intuition and go to Salt Lake City to experience firsthand the parliament that was happening there. And I'd never been with 10,000 people joined together in peace and in celebration and in concern in a way like that ever before. And there was beauty, and there was art, and there was music, and there were cosmic rituals, and there was love. And so I'd like to open with what Valerie Kaller said. There'll be a series of a few videos that I've pulled that I think give you a taste for what it can be like.
Happens, we fall in love. When we are in love, we see with new eyes. We look upon the faces of people who are different from us and say, brother, sister, I cannot live if you are dying. I cannot stand by if you are suffering. So we pray to remember God, but we serve selflessly, seva, in order to realize God.
That was pulled,
And
Uh,
song and poetry, we
sorry.
lose ourselves in this oneness and the
that was pulled from a day that was celebrating women. And a series of very diverse women were gathered to speak about their different opinions and what was happening. And she was part of the early conveners in that day. What happened overall was typically, and in August in Chicago, it will happen again. These huge spaces will be transformed by by all sorts of art that relates to the passions of the people that are joining together. And one of the most amazing things that has been part of this for many years now is that a luncheon is served by the Sikh community to everyone who comes to partake. And you sit together on the floor if you're able, at tables if you're not, and it's kind of a rogue's feast, because you sit by someone from half the world away, and conversations happen and connection happen in ways that just it's impossible to do other than in a gathering of this sort. So there's food, there's community, there's art, there's Buddhist monks creating sand mandalas. And I'll give you, we'll go to the next video, which is the highlights from 2015, again in Salt Lake City, which was a very great place to hold this, and very welcoming city. So Bob, if we could go to that one, the highlights of 2015.
Hello, friends. It is such an honor to greet the Parliament of World Religions.
Hello, and thank you so much for allowing me to join you by means of this video. I wish I could be there in person.
I'm Jim Yong Kim, President of the World Bank Group. I'm honored to have the opportunity to talk with you about a sacred and shared pursuit.
Dear respected members or delegation of World Parliament of Religion.
Welcome. Welcome. On behalf of the board of the Parliament of the World's Religions, with love in my heart and compassion in my mind, and a smile on our faces, to reclaim the heart of our humanity, I declare the 6th Parliament of the World's Religion open. And our political leaders, we pray that you give them sincerity.
What if this kind of gathering could get to the heart of the questions we must address?
Therefore, we, your grandmothers, your mothers, your daughters, your wives and sisters, call upon our grandfathers, our fathers, our husbands, our sons and brothers, and we call upon each other, upon all people of faith, to alleviate the unwarranted deprivation and suffering of women and girls.
Stop living. Yes, us pledge to live responsibly, interact respectfully, cooperate regularly, and love radically in order to demonstrate that people of multiple spiritual paths can indeed live as neighbors, can link our lives to address the common problems that confront the human family.
That last choral group was a Unitarian group that came together to do an original piece of music that and you know, every day is so full with so many opportunities to go this way or that way, but this was an original piece of work that was extraordinary in the way it was lifting up our condition with the environment. And so, you know, it still brings tears to my eyes. It was so beautiful. And it was towards the end of the event, and so many people weren't there to hear that. I kind of wish I could have brought that up to let you listen in to even a little bit of it. But that's the essence of how this parliament goes. People bring themselves fully to take it in. Gail, would you like to say anything about Utah before we move on to Toronto?
My memory almost always is the times when people are together and the different clerics have the robes. So then the Buddhists, you know, and they're orange, and then you have like indigenous wear and passing each other like nothing in the middle of these hallways. It was all of us together looking different, and but there together. And to me, it's exhilarating just to see so many of us from around the world together. My choice.
Thanks. I did a book just of my pictures, and one of the things I included, and this is just to give you a sample, because I went into a workshop not exactly knowing what I was walking into at that time, but just sitting on a chair was a handout somebody had left, and it was the the sheet was the no nonsense guide to peace journalism. And here's what it says: peace journalism is when editors and reporters make choices of what stories to report and about how to report them, that create opportunities for society at large to consider and value nonviolent responses to conflict. You know, where else do you see information like that about that sort of thing? Let's see. Matthew Fox did a cosmic ritual there. Gail was part of it. And if you didn't get there early, you were a sardine in what felt like, you know, a little closet with 500 of your closest friends. It was packed, and many people were turned away. So that kind of puts the wrap on Utah, other than you saw those women lit up like angels. They were women from Australia who paid their own way and would just, you know, they had white sheets on with lights on their wings, and they would just spontaneously sing like different places in the venue. just extraordinary. So Toronto comes along 3 years later, and a different space, a different energy, but also with this idea that the workshops were overflowing. Um, I was exposed to things that I couldn't imagine. Um, I walked into a workshop that the last thing someone said at that point, and this is how much things have changed. The word was 17 million people were refugees. And I know that number is so much larger now. But again, there are people on the ground working in these areas with their faith groups. So you hear their stories. And that was one that I just caught a snippet of. And at the time that number stuck with me. But, obviously, what, 8 years later, it's much, much higher. Okay, so Toronto, can we have Toronto's video? And this is after the fact, and people's message to the world from the Toronto event in 2018.
I'm most excited because we have built inside the Metro Convention Center the Lodge of Nations, and it is an opportunity for our spiritual leaders to share their incredible wisdom with the world, to talk about climate change, to talk about protection of sacred sites, to talk about repatriation of our sacred items from museums, many, many other issues of family and women and peacemaking. So I think our spiritual leaders have messages for the world.
Oh, this is like the best thing that's happening, not only just to be a part of it, but to learn about so many other religions that I'm not even aware of. So it's an opportunity to get to know other religions, opportunity to get to know the people who are part of that other religion, and the people to come in, just an opportunity for spirit-based people to come in harmony.
I had the great honor of being able to lead the women in a water walk. And that water vessel had water from many, many places on Mother Earth, and it had all come together so beautifully. And we walked it to the sacred fire. And to me, that's such an important significance, because it really is around the connection of each person that's here, but also our connection with the elements around how we all carry spirit and the spirit of that water.
It's amazing to be in such a large group of people united towards a common purpose that's so close to my heart. That's the fundamental impetus for everything. It's what's underlying all the movement. All movement comes out of desire. Everything comes out of love. If we're not operating out of that energy, then we're ignoring the reality of what's around us.
We pattern our speech, our activity, our emotions, and our motivations with inclusiveness and with understanding that my reality is not your reality. Your reality is not my reality, but that your truth is sacred and so is mine. And even if they don't match completely, they're only 1 micron away from each other.
Wow. Gail, what would you like to say about Toronto?
You're muted, Gail.
Well, what I am remembering is that we had another cosmic mass. And this one, it was early in the morning, like 7 o'clock. But this one, they gave us the proper room, a big room. And it was once again filled, and it was powerful. And to do that in that kind of situation is bringing together so many people is hope. It's hopeful. That's what I'm remembering. I remember, I'm sorry, long walks. This is a very spread out convention center, but it was wonderful to be there with people.
Yeah, and what I'm remembering was Christine Figueroa, who is from Costa Rica, and she was up on the platform. There are these keynoters of extraordinary their work in the world is doing some amazing stuff. And Figueroa was the woman who was able to pull together the Paris Agreement on climate change, bringing people together that previous previous leaders in the same position could not successfully do. And it was obviously people can't feel proud, but what was remarkable was that Christiana did it and was still working just as hard to keep going, and that was her message. You know, she was, as we all know, things have progressed in this front as well. But here was the woman who finally brought the world together to at least talk about climate change, and she was still in the trenches. Most recently, I know that she's been at Upaya working with Joan Halifax, or maybe virtually she is, but her work continues to ripple out, and her message is we all need to be doing that. And that was just one moment in time that I happened to walk by the keynoters, and it caught me. Yeah, and I would echo that Matt has told stories about the cosmic ritual at 7 a.m. on a Sunday morning. So people had to negotiate Saturday night and then get up to fill the room. And he was told by some of the attendees that it was the most spiritual event they'd ever been a part of. So, so that's that's what I remember about our past ones. Now, to pivot a bit, this August in Chicago will be yet another one. And we have a video of the theme this year, which has a different tone to me than the other two did, but every bit as important. So this is Phyllis Currat, who's been on the board and leader with the Parliament.
Sorry, Penny, hang on. I know it's open. I just got to find her. There she is.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. Good morning. I'm Phyllis Currat. I'm honored to serve as the program chair of the 2023 Parliament of the World's Religions. I want to extend our gratitude to the members of the Fourth Estate for your presence today and for your essential role in assuring freedom of thought, freedom of speech, and freedom of the press, which are essential to the integrity of free societies. My task today is to speak briefly to the Parliament's urgent theme, a call to conscience, defending freedom and human rights. This Parliament will be the most important and largest gathering of the world's religious and spiritual leaders and practitioners. We are uniting in a collective, courageous, and clear reply to the most dangerous crisis confronting all of us today: authoritarianism. This existential, expanding, and global scourge is manifesting in tyrants and strongmen who commit crimes against humanity, suppress fundamental freedoms, subvert democracies, and murder the truth with lies. These bullies and despots are pursuing nationalist wars and winking at domestic terrorism. They are fostering hate and the resurgence of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, misogyny and racism. And they are attempting to misappropriate religion to justify the unjustifiable. This is not who we are. Every faith has at its core a summoning to ease the suffering of others and to contribute to a just, peaceful, and sustainable world. Today, the Parliament of the World's Religions issues its call to conscience to people of spirit and faith, to the people of Chicago, to all people of conscience, to stand together in defense of the dignity and freedom and human rights of all. We will see you in Chicago.
So a number of creation spirituality folk will be there. Figured out just an optimal place to experience cosmic ritual, which will be one of the key events on Wednesday night. And it's possible just to go for a day to these events. So we're hoping that creation spirituality will be well represented. We'll have a booth there. There'll be, if you've ever seen the large puppets of Mary Plaster, some of them will be at the event, and people connect at these tables, and just magic happens, if you will. So let's see, I think we'll just go to Terry Tempest Williams for closing. And she was at the Utah event, and in many of these workshops, or at least aspects of the workshops, are available at the website for the Parliament. The event is happening August 14th to the 19th at the McCormick Place in downtown Chicago. And there's still lots of time to make plans, should that be a possibility for you. Okay, so let's go off with beautiful Terry Tempest Williams sharing her great wisdom.
Looking up into the constellations, I feel that they are the eyes of ancestors for all of us. Truly, the eyes of the future are looking back at us, and they are praying that we might see beyond our own time. What are we to make of this moment? What are we to make of this climate collapse? I do not think it is just an ecological crisis or a political crisis, but rather a spiritual one. And as the theologian Larry Rasmussen has said, can we love this earth enough to change? Can we love each other enough to change?
Okay.
Thank you all. And I turn it over to Bob to focus in on one aspect of the initiatives of the Parliament of World Religions.
Thank you, Penny. I apologize for the audio on that last video. It was as high as it would go, so it was recorded at a very low volume. Sorry about that. As Penny said, we wanted to focus in on one particular aspect of the work of the Parliament, and simultaneously, this is going to be a good test of whether Bob can walk and chew gum at the same time. So I try to talk and bring up a slide here. Let me. There we go. Huh. Okay. There we go. As I learn more and more about the Parliament, I'm finding it fascinating because they've been in existence for quite some period of time. I think the initial meeting was back in before 1900. So as they started their gathering and their conversations, and this particular piece that we're talking about now is a development that took place something over 25 years ago, called the global ethic, the development of a global ethic that they were led to. And I couldn't help but pull out a part of the statement on their website about this. We do not wish to gloss over or ignore the serious differences among the individual religions. As we're all too aware, there are too many examples globally where serious differences of faith, of philosophy, of cultures can separate us and lead to great violence and disagreements. But they go on to say this should not hinder us from proclaiming publicly those things which we already hold in common and which we jointly affirm. And so it was, as all, I think, great changes come to be. You don't start with the fullness of your common commitment, but finding places of common truth and common understanding. And you'll note that each of these, there are five directives. Each of them start with the phrase "commitment to a culture of." And I certainly believe that the culture from which we work and which we hold our beliefs is what is going to allow us to move forward together. The first is a culture of nonviolence and respect for life, however we may say that in our individual faith traditions. Culture of solidarity and a just economic order. Commitment to a culture of tolerance and a life of truthfulness. Commitment to a culture of equal rights and partnership between men and women. And a commitment to a culture of sustainability and care for the earth. If you'd like to see more about these yourself, I've included the link there. As I said earlier, the website for the Parliament is parliamentofreligions.org/global ethic will take you to where they discuss this, and there are some videos there. We're going to take a look at two of the videos in particular, and then I'm going to invite us into some conversation about where we might be seeing this work active in our own communities, regionally or globally or nationally, obviously, in our own lives. But I want to start with the first video. These are all short. And here I go, trying to fish. The culture of nonviolence and respect for life. Too many things open here, right? Oh, I promise you, they were all open. Okay, give me a second.
I understand.
I'll simply open this up again.
When we pray through music.
Well, I apologize.
"25 years ago, the Parliament launched a project to identify and set down the..."
You hit pause and it lets itself go.
Oh.
Yeah. So here we go.
5 years ago, the Parliament launched a project to identify and set down the ethical commitments held in common by the world's religious, spiritual, and cultural traditions. Tonight, the Parliament reaffirms its commitment to the global ethic, and we invite you to do the same. Numberless women and men of all regions and religions strive to lead lives not determined by egoism, but by commitment to their fellow humans and to the world around them. Nevertheless, all over the world we find endless hatred, envy, jealousy, and violence. In the great ancient religious and ethical traditions of humankind, we hear the directive, "You shall not kill," or "Have respect for life." Conflicts should be resolved without violence, within a framework of justice. There is no survival for humanity without global peace. A human person is infinitely precious and must be unconditionally protected. But likewise, the lives of animals and plants which inhabit this planet with us deserve protection, preservation, and care. Limitless exploitation of the natural foundations of life, ruthless destruction of the biosphere, and militarization of the cosmos are all outrages. We must cultivate living in harmony with nature and the cosmos. Every people, every race, every religion must show tolerance and respect, indeed, high appreciation for every other. We invite all people, whether religious or not, to do the same.
One of the pieces that struck me as I watched all of these videos is the universal appeal and invitation. Every one of them refers to people of all faiths or of none to be aligned with these directives. And I find that very, very appealing and generous. The other one I wanted to watch was the fifth commitment, commitment to a culture of sustainability and care for the earth. And so again, I'm going to open this freshly. Okay.
Numberless men and women of all regions and religions strive to lead lives in a spirit of mutual harmony.
It hurts me again. Promise you, I sat there, watched it go on hold, and it releases itself. Here we go.
Numberless men and women of all regions and religions strive to lead lives in a spirit of mutual harmony, interdependence, and respect for the earth, its living beings, and ecosystems. Nevertheless, in most parts of the world, pollution contaminates the soil, air, and water. Deforestation and over-reliance on fossil fuels contribute to climate change. Habitats are destroyed and species are fished or hunted to extinction. Overexploitation and unjust use of natural resources increases conflict and poverty among people and harms other forms of life. Too often, the poorest populations, though they have the smallest impact, bear the brunt of the damage done to the planet's atmosphere, land, and oceans. In the religious, spiritual, and cultural traditions of humankind, we find the directive, "You shall not be greedy," or "Remember the good of all." We should help provide for the needs and well-being of others, including of today's and tomorrow's children. The earth, with its finite resources, is shared by our one human family. It sustains us in many forms of life and calls for our respect and care. Many religious, spiritual, and cultural traditions place us within the interdependent web of life. At the same time, they accord us a distinctive role and affirm that our gifts of knowledge and of craft place upon us the obligation to use these gifts wisely to foster the common good. All of us have the responsibility to minimize our impact on the earth, to refrain from treating living beings and the environment as mere things for personal use and enjoyment, and to consider the effects of our actions on future generations. Caring and prudent use of resources is based on fairness in consumption and takes into account limits on what ecosystems can bear. Wherever heedless domination by human beings over the earth and other living beings is taught, abuse of the environment is tolerated, and development surpasses sustainable limits, we have the duty to speak up, to change our practices, and to moderate our lifestyles. Young people should be encouraged to appreciate that a good life is not a life of outsized consumption or amassing material possessions. A good life strikes a balance between one's needs and the needs of others, and the health of the planet. Education about the environment and sustainable living should become part of the school curricula in every country of the world. To be authentically human in the spirit of our religious, spiritual, and cultural traditions means the following. Our relationship with each other and with the larger living world should be based on respect, care, and gratitude. All traditions teach that the earth is a source of wonder and wisdom. Its vitality, diversity, and beauty are held in trust for everyone, including those who will come after us. The global environmental crisis is urgent and is deepening. The planet and its countless forms of life are in danger. Time is running out. We must act with love and compassion for the justice and fairness, for the flourishing of the whole Earth community, and we invite all people, whether religious or not, to do the same.
All right. I'm going to take the spotlight off, and if you're not there, you might choose to put yourself in gallery view so we can all see each other. I'd like us to reflect on what we just saw and heard, developing these cultures for all, people of faith and people of no faith. I'm curious where you might have seen or might be seeing today examples of these directives coming to life or being sustained and promoted, whether that be locally, regionally, nationally, or globally. And it particularly would be interested if you see things connected with peoples of faith, with a particular religion or multiple religions working in concert together to accomplish some of these directives. If you have something you'd like to contribute to the conversation, please go for the reactions button and raise hand, and we can call on you in sequence. I know we've got global representation here, so I'm imagining there are examples that might be brought forth from any number of interesting places. Yeah. I would start just to offer a personal example from my own life. A number of years ago, I've got my master's in environmental studies at York University here in Toronto, with a focus on adult education and learning. I managed to connect with a local nonprofit organization, which eventually became known by the name Water Docs, because our focus was on the issue around water. You know, people look at the map of the globe or focus in on Canada. It looks like there's lots of water surrounding and within the country, but in fact, it's a tiny fragment of what's available globally. And so our conversations led us to, how do we get people to take better action, to take better care of the availability of clean, healthy water for all? We have too many examples of indigenous communities that are still under boil water advisories because they don't have access to good water where they are. And so it took the form of, eventually, surprisingly, a documentary film festival where we curated films about water and water issues, both the problems and the success stories in Canada and globally. And I'm happy to say that festival is hence came the name Water Docs, because it was documentaries about water. And they are just celebrating, I'm no longer with them, but they're just celebrating their 10th anniversary of that festival. So to some people's surprise, there actually has been a generous amount of coverage and concern about these issues. And so I see that as one example of people coming together to help educate, help inform, help motivate others in the community to perhaps focus some energy and some love on this particular issue. So that's just one example comes to my mind. Victoria Marie, yes, please.
Hi, I'm here in Vancouver on the unceded territory of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish peoples. And I'm a Roman Catholic woman priest, but our worship community teams up with an Anglican community called Salal and Cedar. And the name of that is from indigenous plants here in BC. And what Salal and Cedar does is it gets local people familiar with their watershed, and also advocates for environmental rights and indigenous rights and economic justice and all those things. And their worship is held outside, and we have contemplative walks around different nature places in the watershed. And they also go and preach to or present to other churches to get people involved. And the outdoor worship is open to people of all faiths or no faiths. And the priest of Salal and Cedar also was part of an interfaith institute for justice, peace, and social movements. And so it's on a small scale, but it's part of a larger international group of watershed discipleships to get people familiar with their surroundings. And it's kind of based on you can't love what you don't know. So that's my experience. Thank you.
That's a beautiful example. Thank you. I love that saying. I did a cruise up the St. Lawrence a number of years ago, whose slogan was exactly that. Sometimes attributed to Jacques Cousteau, about we care for what we love and we love what we know. Hence the movement to study and to become familiar with our local geography and the science behind what is happening. Thank you again for that example.
Bob, I might speak a minute about the work of Joe Brewer. As far as I can tell, Joe Brewer is just someone who's very knowledgeable about the environment, and he is working on the notion of alerting and getting clear in our minds bioregionalism. And the idea, if you think about it, just immediately makes sense that instead of these arbitrary lines we've drawn for governance, if we worked by bioregional well-being, things would shift profoundly. So as an example, he was in Toronto, he lives in Costa Rica, and recently he went up to Toronto to work on the Great Lakes and alert folks to what's happening with the Great Lakes, and to get them thinking that if the countries that are surrounding the Great Lakes, if the states that are surrounding the Great Lakes work together for the well-being of the Great Lakes, things would go much better rather than some personal interest of one state being in competition with another. And right now, and you can follow him on Facebook, he tells his story as he's doing this. Right now, he's at the Colorado River in the various states that are surrounding that. That is a very bad situation ready to just explode. And the states around the Colorado River really need to start working together to make that situation turn around, or there will be a lot of people without water. But bioregionalism as a concept, as something we can move forward in our communities, just even getting the word out there so that the concept starts to grow, could be of great benefit, I think.
Absolutely. Thanks for that, Penny. He is doing some fascinating exploration and work and promotion in various places globally. Sylvia Des, yes, please. You're muted, Sylvia.
Just the name of that bioregionalist that you were just describing. What is his name?
Joe Brewer. It's Brewer.
Okay. And you say he's on Facebook?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, he is. And it's surprising, I think this is such a big concept, and yet he's starting with groups of 10 or 15 that happen to be thinking along the same lines he is. And, and he's not obviously looking for a critical mass at this point. It's just, very small scale to start moving the idea outward.
The other examples that come to mind, I know from having met many of you here before that you're involved in some fascinating things. We'd like to hear some of those stories. Yes, Jane. Unmute yourself, please, and let's hear what you have to tell us.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Jane Krasnowski. I'm from Regina, Saskatchewan. And Vicki Marie mentioned that she was a Roman Catholic woman priest, and so am I. The whole thing of a commitment to nonviolence, respect for life, all of these global ethic values, sustainability and care for the earth are part of our orientation in the values that we hold dearly. And it's very practical example for us as community has been in this last weekend, the long weekend here in Canada, Victoria Day. Members of our community gathered at a retreat center south of Winnipeg, which is in a lovely natural environment. It's called Light of the Prairies, and had a discernment on living into the new cosmology, how we as leaders of faith in our community and our practice can live into that, and also studying archetypes of spiritual leadership on what it looks like in a new spiritual community. We've taken inspiration from what we've done here through these forums, and I look forward to being part of the Parliament of World Religions in August, where a couple of representatives from Roman Catholic Women Priests Canada will be present, along with others from the United States. So that's what I am up to. Thank you.
Beautiful. Sounds like wonderful work. So, Mary Ellen, yes.
I just felt inspired to join in because the two women who just spoke were RCWP, but they're also Canway, the Catholic Network for Women's Equality. And I would just have to say that off the top, these kinds of conversations that we've had now with Global Kinship and Creation in Crisis, I've invited many folks from within that organization to join in, and then that has sponsored more discussion and often action. So it's these kind of discussions themselves that are really important. And then I start to hear, oh, I'm involved in this also. And I've just moved recently and went to the local Earth Day and was amazed to find so many colleagues that I had known in other circles that were involved building butterfly gardens, doing water work, on and on. And also within Canway, there's an organization known as GEM, Joint Ecological Ministries, that has also been doing extraordinary work, linking all the religious communities in Canada. So anyways, pretty inspiring. And I just want to thank you folks for clearly jumping in and continuing to offer this session today. So well done.
Thanks, Mary Ellen. Suzanne Taylor, yes, please.
I wouldn't have raised my hand if there had been other hands raised, because what I can contribute is actually quite wonderful. It's not quite regional. It's very small. It's what every single one of us, depending on where we live, the living situation in our neighborhood. But I just did a post on it called "One Person Did What You Can Do," and I'll just give you the essence of. I heard this person on a Zoom like this. I didn't know who she was. And she was talking about what she's doing. And I got so intrigued. I thought, this is incredible. Everyone should know this. So I got behind it and I've been spreading it around. But what she did was she organized her neighborhood. Where I live in Los Angeles, I do not know my neighbors. I'm on a hill. We don't have sidewalks where we walk our dogs. I would not recognize my next door neighbor, believe it or not. If I ran into them, I don't know them at all, and I've tried to do something about it. They're not interested. It's very impersonal here in many ways in LA. But anyway, so she decided she's going to organize her neighborhood, and she has a whole template how she found out who lived in each house. She got emails. If she didn't have emails, she had a flyer. She went around, put it in mailboxes, and last summer they had 4 open houses at 4 different people's houses with a whole set of the first hour was mingling. The second hour, they sat down. They each had 5 minutes to introduce themselves. And then there was one provocative question, like, what's the best thing about living in the neighborhood? Or what was a turning point of your life? I mean, ways that these people got to be personal with one another. And they're going to do it again this summer. It was hugely successful. She has all the little details of how she brought this. Just one person decided, and I'm thinking, God, I'm going to maybe try that. I don't know. My neighbors are not so interested, but maybe they would, But I think it's a wonderful thing. I'm putting it in the chat so you can go directly to that. You can see her model. It's got more little detail. You can just right now, it's like picking up a package to make a meal. You can pick up a package to make a neighborhood. So, okay, so I'm putting that in the chat. So as I say, it's very personal, very intimate. It's not the big deals about, have bioregionalism. But then again, we're all people and we can do things as individuals. Hard to find what we can do as individuals that matter. And she really had it, in spades. So here we go. I'm putting it in the chat.
That's a great example. Thank you very much, Suzanne. We're reminded occasionally all politics are local. And so are other initiatives, other concerns that we have. There's nothing more powerful than an invitation. So that's a great way to start. Carmen Rumbaugh, please.
Hi.
Hi.
I live in San Marcos, Texas.
Texas, yes, feel sorry for all of us. We are in a terrible, terrible time in Texas with a lot of corruption and shenanigans. And my background is Catholic school, then raging atheist, then yoga, Hinduism, then Buddhism, and that lasted about 20 years with a particular Sangha, and then on my own. And also very politically active in like I was trained through Al Gore's group and facilitated through the work that reconnects through Joanne Macy. So anyway, all of that, just to give you a little bit of background. And I've been looking around here in San Marcos, what can I do? What can I do? There's a Unitarian Universalist church, very nice folks, I attend, but it's not reaching enough people. It's a very small group. So I decided to do a meetup. You know about meetups, the app where you can find a meetup for anything, about women over 50 wanting to drink wine together, or just anything, people wanting to practice their Spanish, or hikers, a lot of hiking going on through the meetups. So I put in one a discussion group, spiritual but not religious, because so many people are considering themselves spiritual but not religious. I don't know if you've been reading up on this. More and more people fit in that category, or put themselves in that category. So I wanted to have a place where we can talk and learn to listen and say, this is my belief because of my background, because of my experiences, because of what I've learned. And I'm curious about you, and what do you believe, and what do you know, based on your experience, so that we can, certainly on a political level, we need to have that new ability to listen and talk without saying, oh, well, you're not like me, and so forget it. So I've started the group, and I rented a room in the library for 12, or didn't have to pay money. I just reserved the room in the library, the public library, for 12 people. Well, there's 24 that have signed up, and it's been 10 days since I, thank you, since I put the idea out. People are really hungry for that. And so also in San Marcos, there's the San Marcos River, the San Marcos Springs, which is an area where the indigenous have been living for thousands of years. There's evidence to show that they've been around for a very, very long time. And it's a beautiful place. It's the springs are marvelous and magical, and forms the San Marcos River, very clean, beautiful water. So that's a big part of the identity here. And also mermaids are everywhere. You find the city got sculptors to do mermaids, and there's sculptures of mermaids everywhere to get people more aware of the river and protecting the river, and besides enjoying it. So anyway, so all of that is coming together in this group. And so who knows what will happen, but I'm just giving it as an example of something out of left field, something that doesn't have to start with a big group that has a big name. And just to know that there are people out there, even in Texas, who want to get to know each other based on what's real with each other and what their real concerns are. Thank you for letting me listen, and I love these talks.
Thank you, Carmen. That's another wonderful, oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's another wonderful example of the power of one and the power of the invitation. So be interesting to hear what unfolds as that goes forward. Yes. Catherine Alexander.
Such great stories. So I have another thing to share. How many here garden? So one of the best things, two of the best things we can do, hands in the dirt. for lots of reasons. Your body needs the dirt. Actually, it's really good for you. It helps your mind, as all gardeners know. And if the soil is alive, it will hold water. Water is going to be a big concern wherever we are. So the more that we can ensure that the dirt beneath our feet is alive and can hold the water, the better off we and everybody around us will be. So that's one thing that everybody can do. I'd like to also share a book called Mini Forest Revolution by Hannah Lewis. And what that is, it's a Japanese method, miyakawa, and it's a way of creating original forest. It's a 3-year process. In 3 years, they are self-replicating. They are able to manage themselves. They bring back flora and fauna, and you need a space as big as 6 car parking spots. That's not very much. Most backyards actually would meet that criteria. So it's understanding what the original plants are, finding them and planting them all at once so that you actually replant the forest in a day, and you have to tend it for 3 years, and then it becomes self-sustaining. And so you can do lots of them. And that is a way to really begin to rejuvenate your local space with local plants, bugs, animals. And it's fun. If you love to garden, it's like, no brainer. So anyway, just another thought.
That's great.
And they're done worldwide. Yeah.
And could you say again the Japanese name for that?
Let me see if
oh, sorry.
I need to read it in order to say it right.
Yeah.
So the book is Mini Forest Revolution by Hannah Lewis.
There you go. Thank you.
Yeah, and she's got step-by-step directions and how to figure it out and all of that. It's also a wonderful way to connect with original peoples because a lot of them hold that history. So it's a really nice bridging.
Very nice.
And where are you from, Catherine? You're in Massachusetts?
No. So I'm Catherine Alexander, MA. If you want to Google me, you'll get me if you do that. I'm in Spokane, Washington.
That's the other end of the continent. That's okay.
Yeah.
That's what this is about, is bringing us all together from wherever we may be.
Wherever we are, yes.
Well, those 2 states are a little bit alike, so.
Well, there's that.
Yeah.
Very true.
We're Spokane East, Boston, and you're Boston West.
Very good. There's another hand. Sherilyn, please. Yes. You're muted, Sherilyn. Sorry, Sherilyn, you're muted.
I was being responsible.
Thank you.
This is my first monthly webinar with your group, although I get posts for it all the time because I am a follower of Matthew Fox and Hildegard, et cetera, et cetera. But I think I found an entree here in the group in this conversation in that I am an ordained clergy person. But here in Maryland, where I am located at the moment, my hands are in the dirt. My daughter and I are cultivating 2 separate pollinator gardens in a very urban neighborhood, and in digging into the lawn and repurposing it into not just perennials, but native perennials in the state of Maryland. We haven't planted any trees yet, but that is a goal. It's a very expensive proposition to get somebody to help dig a big enough hole to put a tree in. But very interested in the pollinator gardens, planting milkweed for the monarchs, and just being aware of it. The second thing I do is I have a summer home in Maine. I live on a lake. I am very blessed to have a place on water in Maine for about 4 months out of the year. And in that regard, I run the Facebook page for a group, the Lakes Association of Norway, Maine, 5 bodies of water. And I go on plant patrols in my little kayak around the perimeter in my designated part of the lake and look for invasive species, which over time choke out native plants and ultimately change the water quality within the lake, as well as erosion control, advocating for using strategic placement of an erosion controlling mulch and planting the banks around the lake to protect the water. So those are a couple of places where I can find in my singular way to live out my commitment to the natural resources. But as a religious person, one thing that struck me around the Parliament, and I wasn't even aware of such an event, is that I've always practiced the sense of the holy in me sees the holy in you. If I were face to face with you, I would look you in the eye and say, the holy in me sees the holy in you. And watching this webinar, I realized that is not enough. While I might see the holy in you, I have to advocate for you to have the right and to have that expression of holiness in whatever way you live out your life. In the context of the creative web, the spirituality of earth, creation, cosmology, all of it. And I am incredibly blessed to have heard some of the stories, to see the vision, the much bigger vision of ecumenism and acceptance of religions, other religions. So I just wanted to share, I'm doing a little bitty parts and get that vision of what you can do in a postage stamp kind of yard, but the bigger picture of our human connection. And so my hand is now down.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for that. And I think all of these are just marvelous examples of the network, whether actively directly connected or spiritually and emotionally and humanly connected, how the kind of power that we can create and have and maintain, promoting the spirit and the goals that we're all wanting to align with, in creation spirituality or in any other faith tradition or none, as the directives say. Gail is gonna bring us out, but I'm gonna insert myself one more in the conversation so that we don't have to come back to me. We frequently get requests to know. You will have noticed, those of you that were here at the beginning, that we record these sessions and we do make them available. And we frequently get requests where people can find these recordings. And so if you'd like to copy that down, or I will also put it in the chat as Gail is speaking. You can, this will take it directly to the playlist, the list of all of the global kinship recordings. So we want to have full transparency on that. Okay. Gail, would you like to give us some closing words? Let me find you here. There we go. Here we go.
You're muted.
Sorry, I have to do it twice on this. Okay. I wanted to bring us back to the concept and the experience of the noosphere, which is what this program is about. exploring something that is just evolving and presenting what it is to us in every single moment. There's not a foregone conclusion. We're living it out. So I'm amazed here as I'm hearing people talk about how this situation we have with the earth and our resources has brought out the best in us, has brought out an wanting desire to do something, that how that difficulty often brings out something new in us. And so I wanted to think about that and mention that in the Parliament of the World's Religions too, this it comes out of difficulty, it comes out of strife, and yet it makes us have more desire to work together and to be together. And that desire to work together, when it's shared universally, is a consciousness. It's a kind of consciousness. Before I talked about it in terms of a friendship, but over the whole globe is a consciousness that we share and that has come to be alive in this particular moment in time. This consciousness of working together, as was said, so many wars about religion, so many wars about people being killed for this word or that kind of candle, just the whole wars that have been, so to see religions come together means there's a huge leap forward that is, one could say, that was empowered in many ways by the noosphere, which is made up of our consciousness. So it's a question of whether the act affects the consciousness or the consciousness that creates the act. But of course, it's both of them. It's a circle that moves. And therefore we catch each other up and we move forward slowly. Evolution has its own pace. It goes on its own time. But this right now is a charged time for us. It is the first paradigm shift in a long time for religions and many other traditions and preoccupations as well. We're in a time of great shifting. This could never have happened without working individually for thousands of years on our consciousness, on our awareness of who we are and what we're about. And as we learn that, of course, then we leap off of that to the next level and become even more as human beings, and we have to learn what that means. So it's very exciting, but it's also, it can be really, it can have us feel like we're standing on one leg all the time. So just here to say about this paradigm shifting. In the Parliament of the World's Religions started in 1893. That was the first time they came together. I'll quote Penny that says it was supposed to be for Christians. But who was it, Penny, who came and gave a speech?
Yogananda, Vivekananda, I think. Yeah.
Vivekananda. Yeah.
And so with that, it became interfaith. But also, in response to war, the League of Nations was built in 1919. And then, after the Second World War, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, that was with Eleanor Roosevelt, December 10th, 1944. Then the United Nations. Then the Earth Charter, involving 50,000 people in 90 countries. Then the Charter for Human Compassion, September 1st, 2008, with Karen Armstrong and the Dalai Lama. That was 150,000 people signed that. Now we have the global ethics that we just heard about. The United Religions Initiative, Matthew Fox's books, all of them. And all the interfaith work that each of us does. All of this is a huge amount of spiritual energy that's being enlivened and brought together in the world that is positive. And without those basic values that we have, that we bring to our religions and we recognize in our religions so that they become part of us, each one of those is who we are. It's so close in our brain to who the sense of self is, that to get those together as human beings is a very large step forward. It's very exciting. I did my research, so I'm going to tell you about this because it's interesting, I think, to do that. The paradigm shift, the last one was 2,500 years ago. Listen to all of these religions that ended in the year 500 BCE. In Hinduism, I mean, it's still around, but the kind of the power of it within a culture. Zoroastrianism, Judaism, Confucianism, Shintoism, all these were brought down through war, and they were reborn, of course, because they will. And then came the Hellenistic mystery schools, where that was a more cerebral thing. That's more that wisdom, knowing that we talked about. So there's the wisdom schools that come up, and then there's Christianity that comes forward. So it's a long, 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 long story we're living here. And how wonderful it is to be at it now and at it with you. It's really glad to have you all here for that. So, yeah. Next month, it's our meet. Kamwal is going to come and talk to us on time, the nature of time. And, you know, evolution, time, you know, this is all about what's happening through time. And this is also what he's focusing on for his studies in quantum physics. So that will be wonderful to hear from him.
Right. Thank you, Gail. Did you also want to say a couple of words about the meditation group?
Yeah, yes, we are developing a process for a meditation group. Bob and I have been working on it. It's more complicated than you think, but we're getting it set so that when we finish with a day like today, some of us may feel called to meditate on this, that to hold the vision, to allow what was said or inspired to have life, continuing life in the world, but particularly in our consciousness. And so we hold it, then it's still present, and it affects the airwaves. So we plan to do that on the day after. I feel is very important to do it, and then if the group wants to do it more often, that's I would do it. I do it almost every day anyway. So I'd be glad for company.
And
Bob, you want to say how to do it?
I was just going to say, there essentially are two parts to what we're talking about. The first is we're setting up an email group that we can communicate to each other, those of us who are interested in meditating after these sessions. As Gail says, we may decide to do it more often, but the initial thought is at least a day or two after these webinars for those who are interested. And in that case, what we'll do is send out a Zoom link for such a meditation time. But we will put this out to you shortly. You will, in the next couple of days, you might expect to get an invitation to join this email list. It's the domain, it comes from a thing called groups.io. It'll be global kinship at groups.io. And that's an invitation to join this email list. If you don't want to be a part of it, don't do a thing, just hit delete on that email. If you want to be on that list and be informed and take occasional part in those things, we will schedule times. And so that's part one, that you'll get that invitation to join the email list. I just spotted a note in the chat from Penny. There have been, you might have noticed throughout the afternoon, evening, wherever you are, there have been any number of very rich resources and comments posted in the chat. And so what I think we will do is you will have seen invitation to join the discussion group promoted by Creation Spirituality Communities. Under the covers, the technology is called Mighty Networks, but this is accessed through the Creation Spirituality Communities.org, cscommunities.org website. You can log in there. And we'll post this as a list of resources. And feel free to add your own when you get in there and see those. Hopefully we can have an ongoing conversation there on that network.
And we want to thank Leo Jacoby for making all these so clear and easy to access. So thank you so much, Leo, for your help.
Okay, thanks, Leo. Much appreciated.
And what I think that the name of the meditation group is Global Kin Meditation.
Right.
Global Kin is our team meets. So Global Kin Meditation.
And so,
we'll
yeah,
send that.
Yep. Yeah, thanks for that clarity. Okay.
Well, have a wonderful week and find some places to affect your bioregion or the bioregion of your mind and your spirit. So, and feel that fulfill you and move us forward.
I should note, as we were conversing about what to do about the fact that the people from the Parliament were unable to be with us, one proposal that got tossed out was, should we make this a shorter session? And my hunch was, given the people who show up on these webinars, we were going to have no trouble filling an hour and a half as our usual scheduled time. And here we are at 5:27. So thank you for all who participated, shared wonderful stories and resources. And we'll see you next month.
Gail.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Penny. Thank you all.
All righty.
Thank you, trees.
Ha ha ha.
Absolutely.
That's beautiful.
All right. Bye for now. We'll see you next month.
Okay. Bye-bye.